So hello and welcome
Okay.
to our Tech Day Pakistan event. So as you've been seeing, a lot of speakers are speaking in and sharing their knowledge, their expertise with you. So now in our Azure and AI room, we have Dieter Wickman. Sorry if I pronounce your name again
It was
correctly
pretty
or
good. It
not.
was pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's almost there, yeah.
Yeah.
So over to you, and so let's enjoy your session. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Um, the session I'd love to present today to you is let's take a look at Azure Monitor. Maybe a couple of ground rules. I really like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand in Teams or chat or whatever. If at one point I can't answer the question during the session, I will always be happy to answer the question after the session. The slide deck will be available afterwards. So if at one point I go a little bit further or a little bit fast over the slides, it's always there to, let's say, see it afterwards because I really want to show some demos as well. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm pretty thrilled that this is actually the first time that I'm speaking in Pakistan. I did a lot of sessions in different countries, but I love to explore my world. So this is me, a little bit younger than I am now. In the middle of this is my hobby. When I don't, I'm working or whatever, I have some spare time. I always try to keep my old timer bug on the road, so that's between 3 and 5 a.m. I am a Microsoft MVP, Cloud and Data Center Manager since 2014. Imagine 2014, there was no way that Azure Monitor or even the Azure Cloud was already mainstream. So I experienced the entire journey. I'm a COO of Obvious. Obvious is a Belgian-based company where we actually provide cloud services to our customers and also a modern network. And I included the flag from Belgium there. I also included my email address. So if you have questions during the session, so after the session, or you want to have a quick call to explain something, please always send me an email and I can see what I can do with my time to actually join you and explain a little bit more about Azure Monitor or whatever. So the agenda for today, again, it's quite a full agenda, but still, I want to explain a couple of things to you. So the first thing we're going to do is take a step back and see what actually we want to monitor. A lot of people are trying to monitor everything and they forget the big picture. So first of all, when I'm doing a session about monitoring, I have a huge System Center Operations Manager background, and I'm still doing System Center Operations Manager sessions today. But it's always the same that I need to educate, or I need to, let's say, convince people that monitoring everything is not possible, that you have to categorize. Then we're going to choose the right tool. I'm going to tell you how to get started. I'm going to try to give you some tricks to protect your bill in the end, because everything you do in Azure is costing money. I don't have to tell you. And then I'm going to show the possibilities and the key takeaways. The possibilities, I'm not going to try to do the demo all the way at the end. So I'm probably going to switch back and forth to my demo environment to show you some things which I prepared. So I always start my sessions with my motto, which is my mantra. It's doing common things uncommonly well that bring success. As long as I see people failing to this mantra, I keep this in my sessions. I'm doing sessions now for over 10 years and it's still in here. And it just means that focus also on the details. And if you focus on the small details, the big things will come. A lot of people are doing projects where they actually start tackling the big things and they forget the details of the small things, and that's where a lot of progress is lost. So I'm going to hit the pause button for a while, not literally, but the thing is, what do you really have to monitor? There is a huge difference between knowing that your CPU utilization on your workload is above 90% and caring that your CPU utilization is on your workload is plus 90%. I always tell people, ask yourself the question whether you want to be alerted or you want to be called at 2 a.m. in the morning when the CPU is above 90%, while it has been above 90% for 5 or 6 hours. It doesn't matter. You have to make sure that you only monitor the things that you really care about. So what can monitoring do? It's a classic image, but it's self-explanatory. Companies actually need, they think that they need a lot of monitoring, but in the end, they just need a small portion of the things that they really want to monitor. And most of the companies are doing more than touching the edges of what a monitoring tool in reality can do. And to be honest, they don't have to. It's a balance. It's a balance between, let's say, monitoring a lot of things. It's a balance between, let's say, monitoring the stuff with your monitoring tool and then selecting the things that are really necessary. So the first question you have to ask yourself, am I monitoring the right things? There are a couple of categories of things that you need to monitor. Again, if you want to monitor everything, every monitoring tool which is, well, not good configured, will actually send out a lot of alerts, and it's human. If at one point you have a lot of alerts and you send mails, people will create an automatic rule to put them in a small folder, and then that folder will increase in number, and in the end they will right-click, read all, and then just move on with their lives. It's like someone is shouting in a forest, but nobody's listening. And if your monitoring tool is in that situation, you're going to miss critical incidents. And if you miss critical incidents, people will ask whether the monitoring is sufficient. So it's a bit of a circle. So I made up, or with my experience, I gave 3 categories. Category 1 is like all alerts on, red alert. If this application breaks, it will get me fired. Will security walk me out with a card box in a couple of minutes? So category 1 is something that you really need to figure out that it's up to par and that it's monitored. Category 2 is it's critical, but if it's only important enough to call me up at 2 a.m. in the morning, if it's critical enough that my wife, my baby, my dog, the entire neighborhood is up at 2 a.m. If it's the case, make sure that you have that also in place. And the first thing I always tell people when they tackle a monitoring project is get all the data in and then trying to find and to categorize the things in the notifications. The category 3 is okay, if you come in the office in the morning, okay, we missed that, but I will get it from here. You will change things and nothing really happened, to be honest. If at one point, for example, you have a load balancer where a website is running on and there's one node which is down, but all the other 4 are still running, the website is still there. There could be a degradation in, let's say, performance, but that's just it. So an example, the P1 is the custom line of business applications. So if at one point you have a web shop which is generating all the business for your company, of course that web shop is a P1 and you need to make sure that that web shop is up and running as long as possible. P2, we have the core line of business applications, so off the shelf, the email, there's still Skype in here, but it needs to be Teams, provide high-level monitoring and alerting of the services. And what should wake me up at 2 a.m., the custom line business applications, and where to start. So the thing is, where I always start in the project is where do you want to get, well, which are the P1s? Start with in-house applications, then connectivity issues. So you need to do the whole shebang. You have to do it separate from a monitoring tool. So if you want to have Ops Manager, or if you have Azure Monitor, you need to make sure that the tool is capable of doing everything you need to do. Choosing the right tool. I'm going a little bit faster over the slides, but again, they are available afterwards. But I really want to emphasize this, that you please categorize the things that you want to monitor, because if you categorize, it's easy. You put different applications, different categories, you talk with business owners or a customer or whatever. And at one point, you can focus on different categories and everybody knows what is actually involved. So the next step is choosing the right tool. I can't emphasize this enough. There are a lot of monitoring tools, but there's not one monitoring tool to rule them all. It's always a combination. But the right tool is key because it makes your works a lot easier. Result is mostly the same, but the effort to get there, well, you could try to pump up that tire with just a bicycle pump. It's probably never going to work, but in the end, the bicycle pump has the mean of pumping up a tire. So in fact, it has been created for that purpose, but in this case, it's better to use another tool because it's probably never going to work. So you have on-premises monitoring and you have public cloud monitoring or hybrid cloud monitoring. The on-premises monitoring is mainly end-to-end workflows. You have a single data source, which is an agent, or you could have custom data sources, but then you have to create them. You have on-prem monitoring where it's really shining, right? But if you want to try to have on-premises monitoring, Operations Manager, for example, and you have it on site and you want to monitor Azure, it will work, but it's not designed to. So it's not the best tool to actually use for monitoring your Azure cloud environment. The public cloud monitoring, of course, you have a separate data collection from actions. You have many data sources. You can leverage the automation of APIs, which is very powerful. And of course, Azure Monitor, your one-stop tool for Azure monitoring. When I started giving these sessions about Azure Monitor, it was just, well, in the early days with baby steps. But if you see where Azure Monitor has come from, it's just a whole suite which is tied in to the entire Azure ecosystem, which I'm going to show you later on. So the standard monitoring flow is, in fact, first of all, you need to have insights. You need to have data. You need to have things in there. Then you can visualize, meaning the data is coming in and you want to visualize what's going on. You can analyze, and afterwards you will respond and integrate. That integrate step is fairly new. And it's one of the things which a lot of people are forgetting, because the integrate step is basically the actions you're going to take when you have the response. There's a huge amount of effort going into, Microsoft is putting a huge amount of effort into integration, because in fact, if you have the response, you can do the automation and then you can move from there. So, excuse me, if you're talking about Azure Monitor, remember that we have data sources, the platform, and then we have the integrations. So on the left, we have the data sources. This is actually the latest view of Azure Monitor. We started with only metrics and logs, and this is still a big part of the data platform. But on the left, we don't have the single data source, but we have applications which are automatically sending data into Log Analytics Workspace and Azure and the Azure platform. It's the first time I mentioned Log Analytics Workspace. Well, a Log Analytics Workspace is one, I think it's already been around for 5 or 6 years. And the Log Analytics Workspace is nothing more than a super duper DBase where everything is stored, where you can do queries with KQL and whatever. And it's also the main, let's say, storage behind Azure Monitor. It's not really storage because you have storage accounts as well. Then you have the infrastructure, you have the Azure platform and the custom sources. The Azure Monitor system is open, so you can actually pump in other data as well of other tools, or you can integrate. And then you have the data platform where you have the metrics, you have logs, you have traces, and you have changes. Traces and changes were added recently, and still new data flow platform solutions are coming in. On the right, you see all the different things which are coming back from the previous slides. So insights, visualize, analyze, respond, and integrate. So insights, you can have application insights, you have container insights, VM insights, network insights, and then 3 dots, because there are more and more insights coming in. What are insights? Basically, those are already dashboards or tools that Microsoft has integrated in the Azure platform. So it's easy, you just have to onboard a workload in the correct insights workspace, and then you get all the instance visualization where you can add the extra tools and whatever. If you have the visualization, which is very important or becoming more and more important, you have the workbooks, you have the dashboards, the Power BI, the Grafana. Analyze, you have the Metric Explorer, the Log Analytics, there's the Log Analytics and Change Analysis. Analyze is very important because there you can actually go through your data set and find out what you actually need in the data set. The response, alerts, and actions, auto-scale. Auto-scale, of course, is if you want to scale out or scale in, but the response and alert and actions is very powerful. And then integrate, you can event hubs, logic apps, import and exports API. So it's an open system. You can use the data in whatever you want. So what is Azure Monitor? The 2 great pillars are logs. It's based on a data explorer. It's optimized for analysis. It's indexed for fast searching, and it's your main source for monitoring. In the early days, you had to write your queries your own, and it's still possible to do that. But now it has been so integrated in the portal itself that it's very easy to set up, and that you don't have to dig into your Log Analytics workspace if you don't want to. If you still want to go there, of course you can. Your data is still there. The second one is Metrics. The only difference is that Metrics is a time series database, so it's optimized for performance. So there are a lot of points in there, and it's also saved in a different database in the backend for easier plotting. So once you have defined what you want to monitor, you either choose logs or you choose metrics, or you choose both, and then you start basically creating your monitoring journey. Let me see. Another important slide, just to be 100% sure. What is Azure Monitor or Monitor Not? Because it recently has been changed in the portal to just Monitor. It's not monitoring as a service. A lot of people are thinking that it's something that comes out of the box, and it's just something which is easy to set up, which it is, and then it's just monitoring everything. It's not monitoring as a service. Microsoft is not setting your monitoring and saying, okay, now you're all safe. It's you who have to decide what you really want to monitor and how you're going to monitor it. It's not a set it and forget it tool, meaning that with all the monitoring tools, at one point, you need to have an evaluation and a re-evaluation process in place. If you don't have that process in place, your monitoring will gradually lose value to you and the business. So you need to make sure that you constantly rechange the thresholds and whatever to make sure that your monitoring is up to par. Azure Monitor is not the one tool to monitor rule them all, meaning all the workloads in Azure probably are, well, covered by Azure Monitor because it's obligatory to have monitoring for a service or a workload to be deployed on the Azure system. The only thing which probably is not working is the fact that you use Azure Monitor for all your workloads on-prem. It's possible because you have the integration of the APIs and whatever, but if you have an on-prem solution, it's better to basically switch or have that there and then have one single pane of course. Microsoft is helping you to get started, but you need to know what to monitor. Remember the first slides, you really need to know what you want to monitor. And Azure Monitor, some people are thinking that it's free. It's not free. Azure Monitor itself is free. The insights, dashboards, and everything are free. But the storage you use, the rules you create, and the alert rules, they are not free. Of course, they are very cheap, to be honest, but they're not free. and you know why they're not free. This is just an insight. In the backend, every alert rule is triggering something. Is triggering a query on that log analytics DBase. So if at one point you have so many alerts and Microsoft is not charging anything for it, all those alerts keep firing and people keep forgetting them. So there needs to be a small cost to make sure that you think, am I really gonna use this alert rule, or is it really something of value for my business? So choosing between cloud and on-prem monitoring. I made a comparison here with System Center Operations Manager, but it's something which can be done for all other tools. Azure Monitor is moving fast, but if you need to on-prem, like I said before, use Operations Manager or your on-prem tool, it's built in your Azure workload, so start using it. A lot of people are starting from their already built on-premise environment. They go like, if you're not into cloud first, and they go just deep down technical into that, and they say, okay, I can actually get the data in, and that's fine. If you have a couple of workloads, that's fine. But if you have a lot of workloads, to be honest, it's better to actually go in and use the Azure Monitor and try to interconnect them. And this is one thing I've seen a lot. Do not install the Operations Manager agent on Azure VMs on their IaaS. Please avoid this because it's going to generate cost. And to be honest, every or a lot of on-prem monitoring tools are not designed to run on a cloud platform. They're not designed to run efficiently using CPU and memory. And these two are just the things that you are built upon on the Azure platform. So combine Azure platform with your on-prem tool. It's very important that you create one pane of glass. You need to combine the forces and the new capabilities from, or whatever, bring it closer to Azure. Which Azure tool for the job? Well, availability, performance, security, notification. Again, these tools change. If you see this slide deck or this recording or whatever, afterwards, this probably will be changed, but check to make sure that you have the right tool in the right category to move forward. I'm just gonna easily skip over this just to show you some demos. So I'm quickly gonna, still have 15 minutes left, I see. So I'm quickly gonna go to my environment. It's gonna, all right. So if you see here, it's called Monitor now, but if we go into Azure Monitor, you see that there are a lot of things already. You have the Azure Monitor private link scopes, you have the Monitor workspace, SAP, whatever. So it's not just monitoring. To be honest, it's very, well, I can spend a whole session just going over all the features, but just want to show you how easy it is to actually start monitoring. So if you go to Monitor, this is your overview of all the monitoring. But let's take a step back, and if we go to our, let's say, VM, so this is a VM I deployed, and you have the overview, and already here you have the tab which is called monitoring. And if you just want to enable monitoring for this VM, you just go into the insights, and in the insights you have the possibility to actually enable this. And if you enable this, you need to create, well, you have the Azure Monitor agent, and then you just say, okay, I want this default workspace, or you create your own workspace. Just gonna minimize this, and then you configure. And in the end, it will be configured. So it's initializing deployment. I'm gonna switch to another VM, which is already in the insights. I think this one was already in. And here I can say analyze data because the data is already in. And if I go into performance, I already get like the standard ones, the CPU, the last hour. So I get already the CPU now. These workloads are not used that much, but still to show you how easy it is to actually get data in. You can easily change these, but you already get like all the info in, and the info is already been, let's say, transferred to that metrics DBase. If I want to have, let's say, monitoring configuration, so I want to have something in place, I want to add edit, and then you see you can actually change this this workspace and whatever. The next thing, if you have all the data in, of course, you want to have sorry, you want to have alerts. The alerts are key because no one is actually, well, there are a lot of people in the world which are looking at a dashboard 24/7. But still, if you have alerts, it's far more easier because then they can see an alert popping up and go like, okay, this is something I have to react on. So if we go into alerts, everything is fine for me. But if I want to create an alert, I just go into, let's say I can do it from here, but that's the cool thing. I can actually do everything from here on this VM, or I can go to monitor and create a general alert rule from there. Let's say, so this is the alert rules which are already in place. So for example, if I do create here, the first thing I need to do, the scope is already been placed. So it's, well, this VM. If I want to have all VMs, it's possible as well, but now I'm creating just one for this. And then the condition here, I have the possibility to actually look into, let's say, metrics logs of activity. I'm just going to do metrics. And here I want to say the available, let's say the available memory bytes. The cool thing is here in the preview, you already get like over the last 6 hours. So if I fill in here a threshold saying 6 gigabytes, I will get, because this is turning red on the right, I will get an alert every 1 minute or every 5 minutes. So if I put this at 5, I still get the alert. The units is bytes. Okay, I need to get gigabytes here. See, so it's still saying because my threshold is here. So if I go into, let's say 10, everything will be okay because my threshold is here at 9.31. So if I put this at 6, it's probably gonna say, okay, I'm still over, so 5.5. But you get the picture, meaning that if at one point there is an issue, well, you can actually see or, well, change your threshold to whatever thing you want. I'm just going to put this at 7 because otherwise I will be spammed with mails. This is also very important when to evaluate. It's possible to check every minute and then go back over the last 5 minutes to calculate the average, meaning that it's going to check every minute for the last 5 minutes. In the end, it's not possible to do at this point a check every minute. It's indeed a check every minute, but it's going to check the average of the last 5 minutes. Next is very important. If you want to have actions, please always create actions. You have the possibility to select an action group or create an action group. And create an action group is actually, let's say, a component where you can add multiple actions. So it's not that you have to say, okay, I want to send a mail, I create an action. I want to have automation, I create an action. You can all do it in one action group. I'm just going to say here the region. I'm just going to keep it global. The action group here is this. Day, Pakistan. All right, this day, that's fine. And in here, you have the notifications. Notification type, you can actually send an email. And that email, I would love to send this to myself. There we go. You can even have a common alert scheme. So if at one point you don't want alerts outside business hours or whatever, that's possible. So I'm just going to say email me. That's a typo. Email me. There we go. And in here, you can actually do a push and whatever. So I'm just going to say next. So this is just a notification. The next step is the actions, and in here you have the possibility to run an Azure function. You can actually integrate also into an ITSM tool. You can have a webhook. So this is where you can actually kick off your automation. So if at one point I'm not sure whether the automation runbooks are in my environment, but still, just gonna call it to remediate. Choose a runbook. I have some runbooks here, so I'm just gonna say restart VM. I'm gonna choose my subscription. And that's that. So in the end, I have the actions, but it's gonna take a while, I think. Then you have the tags, and of course you have review and create. So at one point you have the action group. So I'm gonna go back to, let's say, my environment. And if you have the alert, you have the action group and everything, they will come here into your monitor. Which is your place where everything is kept. So in the end, you have the possibility to create an alert rule on a specific resource, or you have the possibility to create an alert rule on all instances of a certain type. So let's say I want to show you the application insights. The possibility you have here is not only to have everything from the shell, but you can also create diagnostic settings, and that's something new. In the end, there's a possibility to create diagnostic settings of your, let's say, VMs. And if you have the diagnostic settings of your VM, it's also going to check internal in the VM itself on specific processes and everything that you can actually run. So let's get back to the overview. Here you have tutorials and you have what's new. The cool thing is if at one point you deploy a new VM. So if I'm going to go into virtual machine, I'm quickly going to show you. So if I want to create a new VM, I'm just going to do it in the portal now real quick. I'm saying, okay, I'm just going to dump it in here. I'm not going to do it in production. In the demo environment, that's better. Otherwise, people will start acting up. I'm just going to call it test. Tech day is done. There we go. It will be a Windows machine. Okay, just going to do Azure admin. There we go. That was not the password, to be honest. I'm just going to say, okay, password. Jesus, everything is acting up today. It must be between 12. Okay, hold on. I'm just going to write a nice story here. That's fine. That should be fine as well. Okay, we can continue. I'm just going to say no disk. I just want to go to the, let's say, monitoring tab real quick. I'm just going to go through all the defaults, and here this box is fairly new, and in here it's possible to create already some alert rules. So right from the box, if you deploy this from the CI/CD pipeline, or if you deploy it from the let's say portal, you can right from the box already give the CPU and the recommended alert rules. So if at one point you want to say, okay, I'm going to put this at 90, that's fine. And you can add the severity, so 19 is error, and then you can have the alert rules. So here you already have the possibility to send alert rules or create alert rules in a small set, which is probably necessary to see that the VM is running. So here you also have the estimated cost. So the estimated monthly cost of having these, but the specific set is at this point 70 cents. So you see, just in general, before I move back to my PowerPoint presentation, Azure Monitor is really baked into every resource you have. So make sure that you use it wisely and that you always come back to Monitor to actually also have dashboards available. I can do another session about dashboards. I can spend an hour or even half a day about dashboards, but it's really key to have what you want to monitor, that you have the right tools, that you have the right thresholds, that you have the action groups, and that you have the visualization in place. So let me just gonna cancel this. Yep, it's still doing something here for 11 minutes, so that's probably not gonna fail out. Yeah, it's a workspace deployment, okay. So I'm just gonna quickly go back to my slide deck. So the last couple of slides, and then I will be right in my time frame. First of all, if you want to save time, if you want to save money on your cloud monitoring, don't add all these rules. Don't add all the workloads you don't need, because everything you add will cost you money. We've seen let's say the alert rules, they were pretty cheap, which is 70 cents a month for a resource. But if you dump a lot of data in your log analytics workspace in the back end, of course, that will incur a cost. So retain only the data which is necessary, and as long as you need it, put alerts in place for changes in trend of data written to the log analytics. I can't say this enough. You have the possibility to create alerts for data which is coming in. Last but not least, I always try to end my sessions for the last 4 minutes actually with a key takeaway. The key takeaways are quite easy. Find out what you want to monitor first. Azure Monitor is the way to go if you have your online workloads. Please don't try to make another tool monitor the Azure Monitor resources. It's probably going to work, but if you want to really monitor your in an integrated way your Azure Monitor or your Azure environments, please use Azure Monitor. You still need to do the configuration. It's not a set it and forget it tool. And it's 360 degrees monitoring possible if you configure notifications. Again, remember the visualize effect, that you need to configure notifications. You need to notify people, but still wait with the notifications until the end of the project. If you put notifications in the beginning and people are getting notifications which are not tuned already, they will actually tune out and will not use it. And start with Azure Monitor and Log Analytics to create the insights. And with that, I have 2 or 3 minutes left for Q&A.